Director of Ceremonies, Mr. Klaus Schade, the Executive Director of the Economic Association of Namibia, Mrs. Trudy Hatzenberg from the Trade Law Center, Stellenbosch University, Professor Roa from the Catholic University of Angola, Mrs. Ndita Hipondokra Roboati from the Namibian Trade Forum, Right Honorable former Prime Minister, Nahas Agula, see the Ambassador of Germany here, His Excellency, you're welcome. Captains of industries, coordinators of the conference, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to be here at the third conference of the Economic Association of Namibia, and I want to extend a warm welcome to my fellow speakers and the audience to partake in this very timely and appropriate conference with the topic of regional integration. Since the formation of the Economic Association of Namibia, it has provided a platform for discussion contemporary policy developments and forward-looking perspectives with great latitude of independence and objectivity. This conference, I hope, will follow that track record. I appreciate the public discourse and the collaborative arrangements in quality research, whose output is material in illuminating public policy and private sector development. The theme which this conference has opted to interrogate, that is, regional integration, opportunities for Namibia, is timely, as it comes at a time when SACU, the Southern African Customs Union, has rededicated itself to its mission and elevated the goals of industrial development, value chain participation, and to become a nucleus for further regional integration. For Namibia, articulating and implementing the strategic actions to improve her productive capacity by gaining increased shares in regional value chain should be a priority action point for the private sector and government policy at this juncture. It is in regional integration and trade creation that a small open economy such as Namibia has opportunities to reap benefits which are greater than the sum of the individual parts. In my talk to you this morning, I therefore will concentrate on SACU and the way forward from our perspective for SACU as a stepping stone into further deeper integration and generating real benefits at home. Of course, there are prerequisites for successful regional integration, and I think they have been mentioned. We have to have peace and stability. We have to be a rule-based economy. We have to maintain macroeconomic stability. But we must also at the same time maintain prospects for meaningful inclusive growth, prospects for a fair society, an equitable society, prospects for economic opportunities that are availed equitably and fairly. So what we do at home, I agree with Trudy, is at the core of how meaningful regional integration at the end would be. Having said that, let me just have a snapshot at what the state of the local and domestic economy is. And I believe there's reasonable optimism that economic activity will pick up pace during this year, and that is relative to 2016. We expect the recovery to be gradual, given the localized recessionary pressures since the third quarter of 2016. The year of 2017 started which converge into a reasonable basis for brighter medium-term prospects. Output in the primary industries, particularly mining and agriculture, have rebounded. The recovery of commodity prices in the mining sector remains soft, but a natural hedge for uranium prices in respect of the largest mine in Namibia, the Swakop uranium mine, promises for increased exports, supported by improved activities in the offshore diamond subsector. We see the momentum of exports and other inflows relative to imports already contributing to the narrowing of the current account deficit. This further reinforced by the effects of the fiscal consolidation program. I think there's no doubt that the fiscal policy consolidation stance has allowed us to rebalance the budget and align expenditure closer to the revenue outlook and towards a more realistic macroeconomic balance. The preliminary outturn for 2016-17, where revenue collection is in excess of 99%, for the revised estimates testifies that the effectiveness of this internal rebalancing is gripping. The early gains of this policy stance and the medium-term positive outlook did not go unnoticed by the credit rating agents. Fitch has upgraded Namibia's national rating within the RAND monetary area from AA+ to AAA. And that is a rating action which distinguishes Namibia from South African national ratings, South Africa being the benchmark market for Namibian bonds. In this year, Fitch has reaffirmed Namibia's sovereign credit rating vis-à-vis foreign currencies to remain at its historical BBB investment grade. We are conscious that the fiscal adjustment is of course not painless, and its effect on operational activities of offices, ministries and agencies, but also in the private sector, are indications of this pain in the short run. Thus, in this environment of fiscal and monetary policy neutrality, efforts to enhance the growth friendliness of policy interventions are necessary to lift the growth potential of the economy. As you have noted, we have sourced about 40% of the financing requirements for this year from the African Development Bank to complement domestic market liquidity in supporting the government bond program. Based on budget revenue and proceeds from borrowing, the government has front-loaded the settling of outstanding payment obligations, which will be finalized during this quarter. Realizing such amount of money, which is estimated to be about 3.5 billion in the short span of time, while continuing the implementation of the budget, is a significant boost for the economy and a good shot in the arm for some of the ailing sectors, such as construction. We want to invite the private sector as the engine of growth to play an active role in driving investment activities in the economy, rather than assuming a more wait-and-see position, which is currently the case. New economic opportunities became available through the recently enacted Public Procurement and Public-Private Partnership Act, and I think these opportunities avail fresh economic opportunities that need to be taken up. But let me now turn to the main theme of this conference, and that is regional integration. I will start with the rationale and basic requirements for such integration to be successful. The current conjuncture is that as a small open economy, Namibia's best hopes lie indeed in regional integration, in value chains and trade liberalization. The case for regional integration arises from an expanded market access for goods and services, increased value shares, productive efficiencies, and welfare gains over time. It, however, assumes that an improved productive capacity for finished goods or intermediates, as well as high-quality services being available for export. If we do not have finished goods or intermediaries or high-quality services to trade with in the first place, integration brings about less benefits. In fact, it brings about risks of remaining a captive market for those that have productive capacity for finished goods. National growth poles for regional integration exist in Namibia and should, more than ever before, reposition its national agenda to advance its regional integration goals. As I said, SACU is an important point of departure, beyond which SADC and indeed the tripartite free trade area and the CFT, that's the continental free trade area, have to be positioned. Angola, Namibia, and South Africa, the so-called ANSA countries, present a special case, in our opinion. Namibia is being wedged between these two large economies, and what those two large economies do and how well they do or how bad they do have a direct impact on Namibia. It is therefore part of our strategy to remain strategically located between those two economies and strengthen integration so that we can leverage off the resilience, the growth potential, and the opportunities that are availed in these large economies. But that is not to say that those are the only ones. Of course, we have members of SADC, other neighbors equally. Namibia has to position itself to become a gateway, a logistic hub, or a provider of finished goods, high-quality services to that hinterland. Secondly, integration is not, in our opinion, an end in itself, but a means of an end. Some important caveats emerge as key prerequisites to propel a country towards the realization of benefits of regional integration. Some of these prerequisites include, firstly, a designated national strategy to guide strategic interventions within the framework of national development plans. I think Trudy has indicated that what we do at home matters. How we restructure our economy will have a direct impact of how successful we reap the benefits of regional integration. So, our interventions must bring about inclusive growth. It must bring about economic opportunities for the youth, for the disadvantaged. It must close the gap of inequality. It must have growth, but as I said, inclusive growth as a real prospect. And it must improve our productive capacity. Industrial capacity, as well as the associated institutional capacity to support provisions of goods and services, must be there. We must be competitive. Our utilities must be competitively priced. Our efficiencies at cross-border transactions must be improved. Our health services must be up to standard. Our education must have the right output. The right skill set must be available. So there are a number of aspects that we have to address domestically before we can be competitively participating in integration. Efficient national quality assurance, sanitation, phytosanitary, and certification standards must be in place. The availability of efficient infrastructure to facilitate trade, that is, airports, roads, rail, technology, ICT, must be competitively placed and pegged. Availability of a critical mass of skills and national competitiveness across a broad range of production and supply chains must be addressed. A national program to address supply-side constraints, it's again the productive capacity, needs to be addressed. And then lastly, multilateralism in trade and open regional and global trading arrangements with policy space for all small, open, developing countries must be a prerequisite. Global trade policy has kicked away the ladder that hitherto industrialized countries used to develop their industries, to develop their industrial capacity. If small developing countries want to improve their productive capacity, that policy space must be given. The second broader topic that I want to touch is Namibia's nexus for regional integration. And let me take SACU as the first nexus point for regional integration where Namibia participates. SACU presents a duty-free market size of about 61 million people, of which South Africa accounts for over 88%. So SACU, yes, was established in 1910 as a revenue collecting mechanism that was way ahead of globalization of trade. And it has been a revenue collecting entity for most of its time. But the latest SACU treaty that we have renegotiated 3 times is putting emphasis on developmental aspects, on industrialization and on trade, as well as revenue collection. Because you will appreciate that eroding tariffs has revenue implications for many countries that were significantly relying on trade tariffs as a stream of revenue. And the benefits of regional integration must outperform the loss of revenue from trade income. Without productive capacity enhancement, that is a tough call. And I think that is a sensitive matter when we talk, or an interesting matter when we talk about free trade. For Namibia, SACU is key to industrialization and regional integration. However, structural policy and institutional constraints need to be tackled to facilitate this advancement. The economy needs to be further diversified, must become more efficient and competitive, and economic opportunities are to be spread more evenly. First, the impasse and uncertainty on the future of SACU has been resolved, and a program of work on addressing policy and institutional matters is adopted. Implementation of this program has commenced. Resolution on the impasses in a positive recent development as a result of an open engagement at Council and heads of state and government levels has commenced and brings about greater optimism of SACU as an efficient regional integration bloc. While the 2002 SACU agreement offers a more liberal and democratic framework for SACU member states to operate on equal footing and reap expanded benefits from their membership of the Union, structural and historical challenges still remain to be addressed in the framework of the new work program. And some of these material issues are the following. There are a number of them. It's a complex thing. I concentrated on 5. The first one is the erosion of trade policy space due to a lopsided common external tariff is a matter that needs to be addressed within SACU. The absence of key institutional structures such as a SACU tariff board and a tribunal are outstanding matters that need to be put in place. Thirdly, a captive market outcome with price raising and trade deflecting efforts which negatively impact on industrialization objects of especially the smaller countries, the BLNS countries in SACU, continues. The volatility of SACU revenue sharing formula and the need to redirect some of the SACU receipts to fund industrial development and trade creation interventions is, in our opinion, an important matter. And lastly, equitable support for industrial development through SACU-wide rebates, duty drawbacks, and trade remedies need to be focused on. The main priority areas of the work program over the next year and a half entail the following, therefore. We want to review and develop a sustainable architecture for tariff setting, for rebates, for duty drawbacks, and trade remedies. We want to review the revenue sharing formula and the long-term management of the common revenue pool. We want to establish a stabilization fund and explore the feasibility of its financing. This is important to smooth out volatility of revenue shares. We want to study the feasibility of funding options for regional industrialization projects and regional infrastructure development. And we want to develop public policy intervention framework to promote and align industrial development and SACU-wide value chains. Within this framework, the envisaged review of the revenue sharing formula will be guided by the principle that no member should be worse off as a result of the review. So an amended revenue sharing formula should not result in one member's gain is resulting or is brought about on the back of others and to the detriment of others. That is the concept of no one should be worse off. This position was affirmed at the 5th summit of SACU heads of state and government in June this year in Swaziland, where the importance of SACU in deepening regional integration, industrialization, and economic diversification was further stressed. The SACU vision and the work program going forward also emphasizes the repositioning of SACU to take advantage of regional and global development. We believe that SACU, as the deepest economic integration in Southern Africa, I believe on the continent, in fact, is an important stepping stone and an important example how broader regional integration can be brought about. At the SADC level, the SADC free trade area and its extension into the tripartite free trade area spanning the Eastern African Community and COMESA offers a larger market space for intra-Africa trade. And again, I want to emphasize that inter-Africa trade or inter-SADC trade or inter-tripartite arrangement trade is only beneficial if SACU, or if in this case Namibia as a member of SACU has the necessary productive capacity to trade with finished goods, with high quality services. If we remain in a position where we trade with our raw materials only, then we will perpetuate a situation where we cannot trade with each other. And I want to use Botswana as an example, our neighbor. Botswana and Namibia both produce diamonds. Botswana and Namibia both produce beef, leather products. We both are relying on tourism in the service sector. We both are transit countries from a logistic point of view. Now, what is it that we can trade with together if we produce the same things? Do you think Botswana wants to buy our beef? Do they want to buy our diamonds? No. So we have to diversify our economy, and we believe that the creation of a regional value chain offers that opportunity, where we can leverage our abundance, our raw materials, put them into a value chain, and then trade as a block with finished goods. The same for services. Then we have a net gain. Then we have an opportunity where inter-Africa trade becomes meaningful. Due to the historic evolution of SACU economies, the SACU market is generally homogeneous. That is the example that I've given now. And in terms of its products range, which limits inter-SACU trade. It not only limits intra-SACU trade, but it limits intra-Africa trade, intra-SADC trade. We virtually produce the same range of products, and the competitive advantages are generally non-existent or weak. Now, how do we reposition Namibia's regional integration agenda, therefore? Taking into consideration the opportunities presented by the SACU policy commitment and the new work program, as well as the market access opportunities under the free trade area, the question to be raised is how best Namibia can leverage these opportunities to contribute to the national objective economic expansion, industrial development, job creation, and poverty eradication. Namibia needs to fine-tune its designate national strategy to better advance its regional integration agenda. The key strategic intervention area entail the following. We need to leverage regional value chains and industries with competitive advantages, such as agribusinesses, transport and tourism in the services sector. Namibia aspires to be a regional logistic hub and has made significant investments to promote this objective. Developing industrial capacity on low-hanging fruits and value addition in areas of national competitive advantage should be fast-tracked. This is an aspect of, for example, renewable energy. Namibia is an importer of energy, while we have huge potential for renewable energy. It's a low-hanging fruit. Let's develop that. Jewelry and gemstones. Namibia is the producer of diamonds, of semi-precious stones, of gold and silver. It has the components that lend itself to have a jewelry value chain. If we combine that with South Africa, Botswana, the raw material base is no problem. So let's develop a value chain. We have meat and fish, but we sell it in bulk, raw, instead of meal-ready products. We have leather and wool, same. The best quality that we export significantly is wet blue. It's in raw it's a de facto raw commodity. We have an automotive industry where we believe that components can be manufactured in member states. So the automotive industry lends itself to a value chain that is spanning regionally instead of being focused in one member state only. We have to further diversify the market access within the intra-African region. Therefore, the tripartite arrangement is an important element, and of course the continental-wide free trade area is the ultimate objective. It is ambitious, but let's not fear ambition. Let's push it as hard as we can to realize the benefits of intra-African trade. Investing in trade creation and cross-border trade facilitation infrastructure is important. Within SACU, we have agreed on the concept of a one-stop border post. Namibia and Botswana have the necessary legislation in place to create one-stop border posts that need to be facilitated so that cross-border facilities are improved. Serving as a gateway for ANSA countries and increased trade diversification with Angola, especially in regard of the service sector, is a low-hanging fruit that can be and should be realized. Establishing a regional and global value chain program and supporting private sector development for participants in them is a requirement. Namibia, and for that matter to a large extent SACU, with the exception of South Africa, we are hanging around at the bottom of the value chain by perpetually supplying the global market with raw materials. We have to engage into moving up that value chain on both sides, on the input side and the output side. We need to improve not only the value of our raw materials, but also the value share that we and that our economies get from these raw materials. And the best opportunity, we believe, is regional global value chain participation. We have to address supply-side constraints and, very importantly so, the necessary skills and capacity development that is in need in the market for improved productive capacity. If we do not match our skills set with our ambitions to become industrialized, we will not be very efficient. So our output, our innovation in the skills component is absolutely crucial for the success of value chain development. And lastly, we have an opportunity to leverage good regional, continental, and global market access to attract direct investment to create value chains from global entities. We are well placed in Southern Africa, we are well placed in Africa, we are well placed in the globe with regard to market access. That is an attraction that we should sell better and bring investors to settle in our block, in our country, to create productive capacity. The private sector is a key player in this national strategy. A robust regional integration strategy needs an enterprising private sector and an active partnership between government and the private sector. It needs a strategic action plan which the National Trade Forum and the collaboration institutions can conceive of and put to use. As we have heard from Trudy, it is not only government's business to create an environment that lends itself to integration. It is equally the private sector that has to make use of those economic opportunities that are so availed and so created, so that we are growing, so that we have a prospect that all of us have a better life tomorrow. If the prospect of prosperity is waning, then I think the prospect of attracting investment, of growing the economy, is seriously in jeopardy. So it is the partnership between the public and the private sector with an objective goal for socio-economic gains for all in an equitable way. That is the overall objective that that we should chase together. The government therefore invites the private sector players and investors to take this agenda forward. The outputs from this conference should be seen to contribute to this very objective. And I thank you for listening.
Right, while our mic is revolving, we have a question on Twitter from Yvonne Dowsep. I suppose in the end the question is, how has regional integration, noble as it may be, changed the levels of its people?
Well, I want to answer that question from a SACU perspective. I think the first advantage that we got out of SACU are significant revenues that allowed us to develop not only our infrastructure, but also social safety nets and operational capacity of the public sector. In spite of it being volatile, I think the fact that we have received very significant revenue streams from out of the pool is an important element to consider when we benefited. The second benefit is, of course, that we have a quota-free, tariff-free arrangement for trade. So any good you buy anywhere in a SACU member state, you carry across the border without any quota limits or any tariff limits. And that brought about a possibility that our business sectors, without any impediment, could enter into arrangements with partners across border. In the end, it increased the market size for the individual entrepreneur in Namibia quite significantly. Instead of serving a market of 2 million, there is a prospect to service a market of 61 million. And that is a huge benefit that integration brings about. The third element, which is a significant one, is there are no visa requirements within SACU. So there is a free movement of business people, of people within SACU. There are some impediments with work permits and the alike, but movement across borders is more or less free. We have a similar customs regime. We have a similar customs nomenclature. Our rules of origin permit cumulation, so I think we have with that also benefits in trading with the globe. And SACU as a bloc has created preferential trade arrangements, market access with Southern America through Mercosur, with the EU through the EPA agreement, with the EFTA countries, that's the non-EU European countries. We are jointly in AGOA. We have access to the Chinese market. We are negotiating with India. So market access allowed us to have a variety of options to sell our commodities and grow our economy. So it is not a perfect situation, but it has brought significant benefits. And the last point, of course, is we are not only a customs union in SACU. 4 of us are also living in a monetary union, and the common currency that we use is adding significant resilience into our currency and, of course, facilitates payment. our payment systems, our EFT systems, our financial sector is very, very deeply integrated, making transactions and payments much, much easier than is the norm in Africa.
Honourable Minister Schlettwein. Honourable Minister Schlettwein is of the view that SACU is possibly the best example of integration on the continent. So should we not also then be looking at inviting the likes of Angola and Mozambique to come to join up as well as a way of expanding that success? The second was going to be on CMA, the Common Monetary Area, but you actually covered that, Minister. I was wondering why you were silent on that. Thank you.
My name is Benson Laruka, and a lot of good stuff was said by our minister with regards to where private companies can actually step forward in order to propel the production industries. Sorry. Where renewable energy is one of the low-hanging fruits, but we have a bit of a problem currently. We want to push for that as well, but we are having problems where currently we are struggling even to get power purchase agreements, although you have a piece of land where you can put up these renewable energy, solar panels or whatever it is. So, and the other thing is also a struggle to get the license from the ECB. So, although we propagate good efforts from private companies and investors to drive this, on the other hand, now we are having the companies that are supposed to unveil the policies and the licenses slacking their feet and actually like counter-fighting the progress. So I don't know whether this is the right platform for it or who we should talk to, because we want to move from raw materials to good production. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Minister, the question on expanding SACU to include Angola and Mozambique, as well as a question from Twitter from Jade. Do you believe that perpetual growth is desirable or achievable? Why has GDP growth not translated to greater equality? Did policymakers ignore the lessons of the 2008 crash? What lessons can we draw now to prevent further economic decline?
Thank you. Yeah, all very important, but also complicated questions. We see that the Namibian is sponsoring this event, and it says it still is telling like it is. So let me tell you like it is what the economy is. We had a robust growth for the last 27 or say 26 years, with one exception, and that was in 2009, where the growth dipped to just short of recession. This is repeated now. We had, since then, since 2010 up to 2015, we had robust growth above 5%, 5.5%. It dipped to no growth. The reasons for those dips are mainly twofold. The most important one is that we are a small open economy, and the global economy, the financial crisis in 2008-09 caused a crisis and real economic crisis because of commodity prices dropping away. And therefore we were touched by it. Some of our mine closed, our production and our trade waned, economic growth dropped. But we recovered quickly because of a counter-cyclical event. We expanded public expenditure, and that brought about growth. And that is the growth that we saw from 2010, 2015. But that expanded public expenditure meant that we had to take up more debt. We were in a very fine situation. I think when we started, we had 14% total debt to GDP. That had increased by 2015 to 37%. And we with that lost fiscal space to counteract the second crisis that then hit us. And that caused a liquidity squeeze in the economy. We had lost the confidence, or some confidence, of the market. We couldn't raise enough money to fund all our activities. Our bonds and bills were undersubscribed, and that caused a liquidity squeeze that we have moved out now. By now, the liquidity situation is fine again. So those were the reasons for the decline in growth. What is the state of the economy now? I think we have reacted to the crisis by introducing what we called a consolidation phase. We had to stop growing debt, and we had to align revenue with expenditure. That has been achieved through both the mid-budget review of 2016 and the current year's budget. We are now in a situation where we have, in 2016, the preliminary figures say that our budget is executed by about 100%, just there, and our revenue collected was above 99%. So what we spent, we could fund by and large with the revenue that we got, plus the deficit of that year, which was at 6.3%. This year, our deficit has been brought down to 3.6%. That means that our total debt is balancing at about 42%, which is still at the threshold of small middle-income countries to be investment grade. We are confident that if that consolidation phase is pulled through, we will improve our debt ratios, we will improve our liquidity, we improve confidence in the market, and we will improve growth, because there will be no restriction or no reduction in public expenditure. It will start to grow as revenue grows. So I do believe that the economy is still facing some headwinds, but they are not as harsh as they were. We are in a situation where the reaction from stabilizing public finances has improved the situation, and the first signs are there, which are that the rating agents have still confidence in our economy. The liquidity, that is our local market, has improved, so there is confidence back from investment community in the economy, and I think we can be cautiously optimistic. We also see that some of the commodity prices are recovering, slowly so, but they are recovering. We have the second largest uranium mine in the world that ramps up productions. The mine itself, as one entity, equates at full production rate about 5% of GDP. What they contribute in production this year would be about 2%. I think the offshore diamond mines are doing well. We are out of the drought. Agriculture is rebounding. Tourism is having a better year than last year even. So there are good signs that some sectors are doing okay, while others are struggling. The construction sector is still in decline. That has mainly to do with public sector expenditure being reduced. We are trying to induce some stimulus there by front-loading payments that were outstanding to them and the industry. As I indicated, 3.5 billion in this quarter will be placed in the economy. I think that improves liquidity quite significantly. It will enhance consumption, and the economy will start to pick up. That is our take. Lastly, our financial sector is very stable. we have subjected the banks and insurance companies to stress tests. All of them are well capitalized and liquid, except the one that didn't make the test. But the good thing is that the system is working. Before it could threaten the stability of the financial sector, there was an intervention that actually prevents that. So I hope the answer is sufficient to give you surety that Namibia is on the right path, and we are, of course, a small open economy in a world economy that is not doing so well. It is the whole globe that is facing headwinds and uncertainty. And I think everyone will agree with me that uncertainty is the biggest enemy of growth and prosperity. So we have to be certain that we remain stable and erode uncertainty. The CMA question, yes, I've addressed it, but I think it's an important point to make in addition to what I've said. Common monetary areas or common currency arrangements only work well when your macroeconomic indices are agreed and adhered to. And I think Europe is one good example. The EU is one good example. The common currency arrangement worked well. But where it slipped is that some member states didn't adhere to the macroeconomic indicators that are needed to maintain a strong currency. So we in SACU therefore strive to manage our macroeconomics in a stable way, and I think in the SADC report you will see that SACU members are managing reasonably well. So the next step of integration could be a common monetary arrangement. We have the common monetary area, which in fact shielded us from the first financial crisis. Our financial sector was not touched because of the regulatory framework within the CMA. So it was a positive, and it is a step that we should consider. For now, as I said, it adds resilience, it adds benefits in the payment system and in deeply integrated financial sector, which, by the way, becomes more and more important because of requirements that are globally becoming crucially important, and that is financial intelligence issues, money laundering, anti-terrorist funding mechanisms. If we can jointly address them in a common system, we are much better off than individually being accountable for these money flows. So I think there are significant benefits from becoming a deeper integrated economic bloc that includes currency arrangements. Do I believe that perpetual growth is desirable or achievable? Yes, we believe it is very desirable. If we do not grow, that's it. Then your prospects of becoming wealthier, your prospects of having a better standard of living is gone. You will not. But the perpetual growth must be better shared. The transformation of our economy is not only about who gets what at what cost. For us at this point in time, it is how do we transform the economy so that more of us live better. So the transformation of the economy, the adjustment of the economic structure as now, which is not performing in a way that we fast enough erode inequalities or eradicate poverty, that is what we have to focus on. And that is often called inclusive growth, but it takes more than just inclusive growth. I think it takes a restructuring of the economy in a number of aspects. And I think that talks to the question as why has GDP growth not translated into greater equality? Well, in fact, it to a certain extent has. Namibia is one of the very few countries where inequality has been eroded. You will remember that at independence, our Gini coefficient was over 0.7. It is now 0.58, 0.57, I believe. That is a significant erosion of inequality. But because of its immense disparity that we inherited at independence, it is not enough for us to say we are now a society where there is no inequality. Inequalities are still very, very harsh. And they must remain our top priority to be eroded away. I think the second component of the question, why has it not translated into greater equality, is to be found how our economy was structured, and we didn't aggressively enough restructure that economy to bring about inclusive growth at the beginning. Our desire to maintain political stability, to gain international recognition, to be included in the globe, move out of isolation, took a lot of our resources, and we are now at a point where we have established that, and we can and should move faster and more aggressively to bring about equality and to eradicate poverty. I think that is the quintessence of the Harambee Prosperity Plan, how we want to move in that direction as quickly as possible. Did policymakers ignore the lessons of 2008 crash? I think the current crash is a little bit different one from the 2008 one. The 2008 one was caused by a irresponsible finance sector. Banks got greedy and overstretched themselves, and they lost the ability to get the loans that they so offered being paid. And that then caused these poisonous elements that they sold and resold into the global market. When it crashed, it had a domino effect, and the financial sector was in serious trouble. And interesting enough, the ones that had to solve the problem for the banks were not the banks themselves. It was government, taxpayers solved that problem. Now, the crisis that we have now is not a crisis in the financial sector. It is a crisis in the commodity sector. And the reason is that large economies like China stopped growing at 11 or 10%. They had to rebalance away from export to domestic consumption. The developed world, that is the United States, Europe, and Japan, have structural problems themselves that hamper growth. They haven't survived out of the financial crisis. I think the EU is an example. They have a demographic issue to deal with, aging populations, and they are in a situation where they will grow slow for long. And with that, demand to raw materials will be slow for long. And that is the main cause of this crisis. What lessons can be drawn from now to prevent further economic decline? Well, I believe that our economy, and we said it a number of times, is small and open. We had not only externally induced factors that caused a slowdown in growth, I think we ourselves overcommitted that economy to a certain extent, and that overcommitment caused that confidence was waning, and again, it had ripple effects in cash flows, in investor confidence, and so on. But we are not, we made a turn just before the wall. We didn't crash. We are not broke. In fact, we are far from broke. But we had a situation where we were not liquid, we were illicit. And that we have managed now through additional loan financing of the deficit from the Development Bank, and we are now afloat again. So the lessons is, live within your means, give effect to what the citizens need most, create an economic environment where the youth has a prospect to live better than their fathers and mothers. If you have the prospect that you will be more wealthy than your parents, that is positive growth. If your prospect is that you will be only as good as they are, or as poor as they are, or poorer, that is trouble. So we must address those aspects.